But you feel bad if you're relaxed, don't you?
It's not the done thing, is it?
No. Because your brain's like, well, I could be doing this.
Capitalism is all like, no, you must work more.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, why are you failing me?
You must work like Elon, even though you don't quite have his compensation.
Yeah. And apparently, I can't remember where I read the article, but it was like, basically, CEOs, apparently it's the job that you get if you don't want to do any work. So none of them go and do anything. They just, I don't know what it is they do. But apparently they don't go to work.
They steer.
They
stop us from going off a cliff normally, usually.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes.
Just every few months issue a back to the office mandate.
That's what we need.
And, the job's done then, isn't it?
None of the namby-pamby, whatever.
Work from home.
Snowflake.
Yeah. I can't really speak in those because I
You can, you just have to think.
Yeah.
In between each word.
Yeah. The right-wing spiel doesn't come out.
Well, yes, I think there's probably a lot of resistance.
Yeah.
To even ironically doing the right-wing spiel.
Yeah. I can do other spiels.
Yeah, you can, Ash. You can.
I can.
I think any listener to What a Lot of Things will know that you can do other spiels.
The other spiels are available.
Really. We're starting to learn to speak clanger now, aren't we?
Yeah. What's a clanger, Ian?
Well, I'm glad you asked me that. It's a 1970s TV character.
Well, every now and then maybe we should do a refresh.
Rebooted in the 2000s or 2010s or something.
Yeah. And then reimagined for what lot of things?
Yes, re-nightmared. Yes. I think its main legacy is the loud whistling in between the segments of this show.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to explaining what a clanger is to the attendees of the Leeds testing atelier.
Why would we be explaining it to them, Ash?
Well,
there's a story.
There is a story. We might, as in we will, one way or another.
One way or another. Something.
Be recording a live episode.
A live episode.
Well, if you're a podcast listener, unless you're there as well, you won't hear it live. It's not that live.
I'm not going to now volunteer to make it liver.
Yeah. No.
Tempting though it in fact is.
So it's with a live audience rather than it being a live episode. It's probably a more accurate.
Well, we'd like it to be accurate.
Yes.
We're keen on accuracy.
Consistency, discipline and accuracy. That's what the whole lot of things is all about.
The hallmarks of What a Lot of Things. Where we never have to take back anything I've said. Because I always remember all my anecdotes perfectly.
Yeah. All those quotes that you don't know who said them.
Yeah.
But you know the quote.
Yes. I can authoritatively say the wrong person said them. Or we can discover that while everyone thinks they did say them, in fact, it's not true.
There's quite a few of those, though, isn't there?
Yes.
That are attributed to various figures of history.
For a while, on my emails at the bottom, I had Einstein's thing that he didn't say, which was things should be as simple as possible, but no simpler. And I always enjoyed that very much. But who knows who said it?
Yeah.
Someone.
It's wise words still.
Einstein said something about, I don't know, quantum something.
Quantum something. What would Einstein have made of your quantum computing episode?
I'm sure.
I've completely
Yeah, it's nothing to do with you, was it? You didn't say a word during that whole thing. I think he would have understood it better than either of us.
I would agree.
In fact, we would have said to him that there was such a thing as a quantum computer. And then he would have said, oh, that's a good idea. And then he would have just figured it out from first principles.
Yeah, pretty much.
So just in terms of not looking stupid, Einstein is never going to be invited onto this podcast.
Yeah. What's the other quote? Oh, it's the Henry Ford one, isn't it? That he didn't say about...
A faster horse.
Yeah.
Sorry, you were going to say the whole thing. You should say the whole thing.
No, it's okay.
Because I've said the words a faster horse. And like,
it's a great quote.
Nearly everyone's like, oh, yes, I know that one. And then there'll be a few people who are like, what?
Yeah, Henry Ford wanted everyone to get a faster horse, right?
Yes. You know, he was a hay salesman before he took up. He sold special hay.
Special hay.
It was laced with cocaine. It made the horses run really quickly.
All right, okay.
Moving on.
Moving on from cocaine-laced hay.
It's not a phrase I ever thought of myself as being about to say at any particular point in my life.
So apparently Henry Ford wanted to give people a better working week, shorter, with less days.
What sort of capitalist was he?
See, this is the interesting thing. He wanted a shorter week for people, so they would come and work for him, but not work for anyone else, so he could maintain his monopoly. So it was still capitalism. But
okay. So should we do the then the Mr. Burns?
Well, yeah. So yeah, I just found that really interesting because he was definitely in the arch capitalist space. But
Pantheon.
Oh yeah.
That's a word that's rising to the point where we now notice saying it after the last episode, which we can remember because it went live. I finished editing it last thing on Monday and it went live 5 a.m. on Tuesday.
Exactly.
Giving Ash a lot of time for his listen to his pre-release listen that he normally does.
Yeah.
Although to be fair, he doesn't normally then provide feedback along the lines of, you've allowed a catastrophic sound to be...
So, Ian, could you make a catastrophic sound for me, please?
That wasn't what I had in mind.
Can you imagine if one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse was called Kinevin, and that was the cry that broke open the sky at the end of days?
But which one would you change into it? Because obviously there's famine, pestilence, war, and death. So which one will have their scope slightly reduced to that of Kinevin?
Let's get rid of famine. Well, I'm sure we could use the Kinevin framework for the end of days.
Well, I'm sure it will be chaos.
Yeah.
Mind you, this might be the end of days.
Yeah. It's the end of this day.
Well, yeah, it is the end of this day. I'm quite tired. I ran a workshop in the morning.
Facilitation is tiring.
It is tiring. It was design thinking. And it was remotely delivered to teams in India. So it was quite the epic adventure. It was really good, actually. A great crowd.
Design thinking, eh? Please see
that sounds
previous
like Mr.
episode.
Burns. We did do an episode about it.
We did.
I probably know more. I feel like we should be going back over our back archives and listening to the things we said about stuff.
Well, yeah.
And then redoing them right or better.
Well, I think we did the best. What's the retrospective prime directive? It's everyone does the best job that they can with what they know at any given time.
Or what their AI knows.
What their AI knows.
Or rather, what their AI can express with in a very confident manner.
Yeah. Speaking of AIs.
Speaking of AIs. Oh, someone's got to go first.
Yeah.
We've got to do things.
We do need to do things.
That's why we're here.
I'm quite excited about this thing as well.
Well, I can't remember who went first last time. I think it was me.
Yeah.
Because the episode recording time ran for an hour and 38 minutes or something like that.
And an hour and 10 minutes of that was your thing.
It was my thing, yes. And that was a more interesting thing than I had anticipated. But I had to edit out a massive chunk of it just to make it go down to under an hour and a quarter.
That's the new benchmark now, isn't it?
Well,
before the benchmark was an hour.
Yeah, it's now an hour and a quarter. Yes. Wind forward.
Yeah.
We are never doing an episode that's over 6 hours.
Yeah, in 2050.
Yeah, yes, 2050. Scope creep will have overcome us.
Yeah. Welcome back to this marathon episode. We've stopped editing and now we just broadcast.
Yeah, that's literally the only way we can. And even so, our time is getting away from us. And so we're operating constantly and with an ever decreasing amount in the past.
So basically, Ian goes to sleep for a bit, during these marathon broadcasts, and then I just start a rant about, I don't know, Figma, story slicing,
whatever equivalent they have in those days.
Yeah, exactly. And then Ian gets a couple of hours sleep, and then once my rant is finished, we can begin the podcast again.
Yeah, the next episode. Oh, honestly, I think this is a lot of fun, but I'm not sure I would do it full time. Not literally full time, anyway.
It'd be quite a terrifying life, wouldn't it? Just picking out things to have hot takes about continuously.
Continuously. Well, I guess that's just being an influencer,
yeah,
isn't
that
it?
does sound like being an influencer, doesn't it, actually? So yeah, I don't want to do that.
No.
So may I talk about a thing?
Well, I suppose, grudgingly, that since I did talk about presentation tools for a remarkably long amount of time last time, that it is right and proper that you should now talk about a thing.
Yeah.
But first, what is your thing?
So my thing... Sorry,
little thing in my throat there.
My thing is called vibe coding.
Is that your thing? Really?
Yeah. Although I've never done any vibe coding.
Have you not?
No.
I thought all coding with AI was vibe coding.
Yeah. So I think we'll get to that.
Is that a popular misconception?
Shall I explain the origin of vibe coding first?
Well, I think that's an important place to start from, actually, because what it's morphed into is it's much better to think of it in that way, isn't it?
I mean, it's got more entertaining, but it wasn't the original intent for the phrase vibe coding.
Okay, so let's do that then. What is vibe coding?
So where did I first notice this? So there was a TechCrunch article about a company that has received $20 million, I assume, in funding, or maybe even pounds.
20 million gold bars to fix problems caused by vibe coding. To which I thought, I guess the first thing I need to know is, what is vibe coding and why does it need to be fixed? Fair comment.
What problems does it cause that require the fixing?
Are people vibe coding firewall firmware?
Well, so I started to dig around vibe coding, as one does in preparation for what a lot of things. So a chap called Andrej Karpathy, excuse my pronunciation.
He's a luminary of the AI world, isn't he?
He is. He's got some interesting thoughts.
And he's author of some interesting papers as well, or co-author in the history of modern AI. So he's quite an authority.
Yeah. So on X, Twitter, whatever, he posited this definition of vibe coding. I might not read it all out, but it's quite fun.
Oh.
So there's a new kind of coding I call vibe coding, where you fully give in to the vibes, embrace exponentials, and forget the code even exists. It's possible because the LLMs, for example, Cursor with Sonnet, are getting too good. And I just talked to Composer with Super Whisper, so I barely even touched the keyboard. I asked for the dumbest things, like decrease the panning on the sidebar by half, because I'm too lazy to find it. I accept all always. I don't read the diffs anymore. When I get error messages, I just copy and paste them in with no comment. Usually that fixes it. The code grows beyond my usual comprehension. I'd have to really read through it for a while. Sometimes the LLMs can't fix a bug, so I just work around it or ask for random changes until it goes away. I like that one.
Yeah.
It's not too bad for throwaway weekend projects, but still quite amusing. I'm building a project or web app, but it's not really coding. I just see stuff, say stuff, run stuff, and copy and paste stuff. And it mostly works.
Wow.
How do you feel about vibe coding?
I feel very comfortable with vibe coding by that definition. If he had said, I see stuff, say stuff, run stuff, copy paste stuff, and then push it to mission critical production.
then just push it to the air traffic control system.
I would have more reservations about it.
Yeah.
But that just sounds like fun.
Okay.
I mean, it is kind of fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is sort of miraculous watching an AI produce some amazing UI just out of nothing.
Yeah. So have you ever done vibe coding?
Only accidentally.
Interesting. So it's possible just to not realise that you're
to
doing
drift into. Well, what happened?
Oh.
So in my instance, I recently, I don't think I quite have vibe coded it, but I wrote a simple app
Yeah.
for the Ilkley Live Busking Festival
Uh-huh.
because people who shall remain nameless said to me, we're launching 5 busking spots in Ilkley.
Yeah.
And we want to have a festival on a day to launch them. And we want a booking system for this festival. Is there something we could do with Google Forms or something?
While looking at you.
While possibly having some kind of eye contact. And I said, okay, well, I'm sure we can do something with Notion or Notion Forms or something like that.
Yeah.
So I went away and had a go. Give it a go. Give it a go. Go, go. I had
That's
a go.
the theme with AI, isn't it?
That's the national anthem of vibe coding.
We'll have a go.
And basically, after an hour and a half of messing around with Google Form, it was Notion and some other things, I thought to myself, basically, this is going to require full-time human supervision to deconflict people who've booked the same spot at the same time.
Yeah.
And I can't find a way to easily manage that through the software without writing software. And then I thought, writing software. And so I got my Claude code out, and about another hour and a half later, I had an app that did this, that I could deploy to Vercel with a database that cost me $1 a month or something. And I was delighted with that. And then I spent a really long time polishing it.
So you lost the vibe then.
Well, the vibe coding is great.
Yeah.
Providing that you don't have any opinions at all about how your application should work.
Yeah.
But if you have opinions about how it should work, then vibe coding is a, shall we say, extended discussion about whether it's actually done your way of doing it or not.
Yeah.
So this is probably the closest thing I've done to making an app that was vibe coded, if you like.
Yeah.
But the things where it went wrong and caused problems was when I did what he said here. So not reading the diffs.
Yeah.
So, or not reading it properly, or not reading it and saying, well, hang on a second, we already do something else over here that we should reuse here.
Yeah.
Or something like that. If you can ignore all of that and your app's not that important and doesn't have any real security or privacy concerns, you're not storing people's data, then it's probably fine to entirely vibe code something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
But I wanted to put people's phone numbers and email addresses in my database. And in order to do that, it wasn't really practical that I just let the AI decide how to secure it.
Like vibe your way through it.
No.
So one of the things that interests me is at the moment at work, they're doing like a rollout of Copilot.
Is that the one that everybody says sucks?
Yeah. But,
okay.
I mean, regardless of the tool,
yes,
what you said about slipping into vibe coding.
Well, exactly.
So
yeah.
I guess that's like the danger, isn't it? Is that you might start with the intentions and opinions about how things should be, but then in your weaker moments, you might slip into just going with the vibe.
Well, the thing is that you just think, you decide to trust it, and you can't really ever trust it. And you can't trust it with your software architecture design.
No.
And that's the thing. So I, for example, when I'm slowly building my list of things that I do when I'm making Next.js apps with React and server components and server actions and what have you. But I've built a library that I use in all my apps for parsing state back and forth between forms and the server. I want to do that. I want to use that.
Yeah.
I don't want it to invent a new way of doing forms every time.
Yeah.
And half the time it says, right, well, we'll just install React hook form now. And I'm like, no, you won't.
Right, okay.
and then sometimes it says, I'm just going to make up a type for passing the data between the two, which doesn't do all the things that I want. And getting it to do the thing I want is quite difficult. And actually what I've found is I have to use templates. So I'll make a template server action and a template form that have scaffolded how I want it to be. And then I put those in place, and then I say, make this have these fields and do this. And it kind of builds it up from the foundation that I want to be there. But you can't let it just go ahead and do the form because it will do something completely random.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting the distinction there between, like, say if you just, I don't know, adding some error handling to an API endpoint, say, versus like maintaining the wider design patterns. So you got like code versus design patterns argument where it's like, well, maybe you can vibe code something, but you can't vibe design something.
No, and I think it may be a thing about context windows here. And some AIs are now starting to have very big context windows where you could almost say, oh, we're just going to send the whole repository to them. Yeah. And in that case, they might be a lot better about following the rules and the patterns that you've set up.
Yeah.
But in general, it's a bit messy.
Yeah.
And I totally get this idea of vibe coding. I think it's fun. And if you're just messing about, go nuts. But professional software development is a whole different game than that.
Yeah.
And I think you're right to highlight this idea that a developer with the best of intentions will become tired, start trusting it, clicking OK. And I find a lot of the time I'm stopping it in mid-flow and then saying that thing I just approved actually...
Right, okay.
Because I see it after I notice things about it after I've already pressed enter. Yeah. Or pressed approve. And that, you sort of think, how many times have I not done that? How many times have I not noticed? And I went, you can end up with entire APIs with no authentication.
Yeah.
It can be very dangerous. It's not a way to produce production grade code. Yeah. But you can produce production grade code with AI. You just can't vibe code it.
Right.
That's the thing that kind of winds me up now.
Yeah.
So people say vibe coding is equated to all coding that involves AI. It's like, no, it isn't. The kind of coding where you're constantly arguing with it and making it adhere to a professional design and making that is not vibe coding. There's no vibe going on there, apart from a slight vibe of irritation when it, yet again,
I guess that
doesn't do your form right.
I mean, that is a vibe, isn't it? You know what I mean?
I don't think it's the vibe that Andrei Karpathy is talking about in his iconic and nearly monumental
description.
Yeah.
So one other thing that I spotted as well, I often haunt the ThoughtWorks tech radar.
Does that mean that you lurk around it and then you jump out at people?
Yeah. And say, oh, look at that. Look what they've added.
Yes. And you say,
ooh, that's in the wrong quadrant.
That's in the wrong, yeah. You're wrong.
So one of the things that they weren't wrong about, or was at least interesting, could possibly turn out to be wrong. They started talking about fuzz testing, which is quite an old technique of just supplying random data to, say, an API endpoint and making sure that you get the responses that you think you're going to get and you don't.
Is this like the tester going into the bar and ordering a pint?
Yeah.
And then ordering 998,473,716.3 pints.
Yeah.
And minus 2 pints.
Yeah, pretty much. So all of which probably, apart from the first one, get you an annoyed bartender. Yes. Rightly so. Yeah.
Don't do that, kids.
So, but they started talking about fuzz testing as a way to cope with complacency in AI-generated coding.
Oh, is complacency the thing where you just let it do the...
Well, you see, this is the thing. Is complacency the vibe? And I like the way complacency with AI-generated code is also on the tech radar in the hold status, as in don't do this. It's like, yeah, fair enough.
But yeah, you see, this is where we get... This is where I start having a problem because vibe coding is not that. There's no place for complacency in vibe coding, as vibe coding is just fun. It's not. Yeah. It's not real work.
Yeah. But it's already morphed. So here it says the emergence of vibe coding, where developers let IA.
Did you know they do some really great software called presenter and writer,
where developers let AI generate code with minimal review. And like basically on here, on the ThoughtWorks tech radar, it basically says that that's what vibe coding is. It doesn't mention fun or weekend projects or anything like that.
Well, link to an article that Simon Willison, who I often quote, because I really like his blog. Anyone who's interested in AI should certainly be reading Simon's blog, if you're a nerd anyway. And he made a blog post entitled Semantic Diffusion.
I prefer vibe coding.
I learned about this term today while complaining about how the definition of vibe coding is already being distorted to mean any time an LLM writes code, as opposed to the intended meaning of code I wrote with an LLM without even reviewing what it wrote. So semantic diffusion is a term that means the way that other terms, because semantic diffusion has not suffered from itself, I don't think.
No.
Well, that would be really interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
Semantic diffusion refers to the way in which the term vibe coding has turned into code I wrote with an LLM.
Yeah. So to be fair to ThoughtWorks, they back it up with apparently Git Clear's latest code quality research that the emerging trends are 4 times more code cloning, copy and paste exceeds moved code for the first time in history.
Oh dear.
Oh dear. Yeah. So basically, they posit that the AI coding assistants are already having this influence. This vibe, sorry, not influence, vibe.
We're using vibe in so many different ways now that it just lose all meaning.
Yeah, pretty much.
You ever have that?
Semantic diffusion for vibe.
Yeah. Do you ever have that thing happen to you where you say a word a few times and then you can't remember what it means? It kind of, it starts to look weird. And you sort of think, this is a very common word that I use all the time, but
like what?
Why does it look funny? Hang on. I'm typing in a search. The experience of a word's sound starting to be weird after saying it a few times. The experience of a word sounding or appearing strange after repetition is a psychological phenomenon called semantic satiation.
Of course it is.
Repeating a word causes it to temporarily lose its meaning for the listener. The brain shifts focus to the sound of the word rather than its meaning, making it sound like gibberish.
Oh, right, okay.
So we've got semantic diffusion and also satiation.
Mm-hmm. So is vibe coding starting to sound strange and gibberish like?
No, this whole conversation though. I'm sure we were going somewhere, and then I think my semantic satiation and then sidetrack may have made me forget what we were doing.
Yeah. So someone I know went to work for a company who are making. So there's people like to buy what they call motorhomes, RVs. So they're making like a management and monitoring software for RVs, but the chap who set up the company was non-technical and just vibe coded like the whole thing. And it works in a way. It's not very extensible, which I suppose speaks to your like design comment from earlier on. But it does work, and he has sold it to people. And then he's hired a developer and they've gone, whoa, look at the innards of this. All inheritance for everything comes from like one class. And you could have a catastrophic change in that class. And that's kind of interesting because according to Y Combinator, 1/4 of the startups in its latest batch relies on AI to generate 95% of their code base. So basically there's a whole generation of startups whose code is largely generated by an LLM. But I suppose within that it depends, like, are they doing it by vibe or are they doing it as professional developers guiding the LLM to come up with a sensible code base? I suppose it depends, doesn't it? I bet it's vibe.
Well, it's probably somewhere in between, isn't it?
Yeah.
So there's a guy on Twitter. I probably should call it X, really, shouldn't I? And I keep seeing screenshots of this guy's tweet. So I've just been looking for it to try and find the original of it. And it is still there. And it says this, March the 17th, LeoJR94_.
Okay. Snappy.
Ever since I started to share how I built my software as a service using Cursor, random things are happening. Well, I like him already.
What a lot of...
Yeah. Maxed out usage on API keys. People bypassing the subscription. Creating random stuff on the DB. As you know, I'm not technical. So this is taking me longer than usual to figure out. For now, I will stop sharing what I do publicly on X. There are just some weird people out there.
There are some weird people out there, it's true.
He's rolled all API keys and moved them to environment variables.
That's very sensible.
That's excellent practice.
Yeah.
He's implemented authentication to API endpoints. He's still there the next morning. And then FML, not sure what that stands for. I should have just kept it quiet. Anyways, thanks everyone who's been trying to help, or at least not throw me under the bus. I'll learn from my mistakes. I suppose me reading out his tweets in a sarcastic voice probably isn't helping his psychological well-being.
Another form of being thrown under the bus, isn't it?
It is. And then underneath, immediately, there's an ad for Gearastic kitchenware. So that's the wonder that is X.
Twitter. So yeah, I just thought that was such an interesting introduction of a term, and then it morphing into something else.
Via semantic diffusion.
And also, I wanted to bring it to you, Ian, because I know that you're a fan of AI augmented development.
I'd like to thank you for not saying vibe coding.
See? Yeah, Gwen was like, just call it vibe coding, what Ian does.
Yeah. Cheers, Gwen.
And I thought it would be an interesting one from like your point of view.
Yeah.
Because, you've embraced this for a little while now. Not vibe coding. Sorry, just to be clear.
Well, not intentional vibe coding.
No. I mean, I guess unintentional vibe coding has probably been around for a long time, right?
I remember the day before Claude Code came out, we released an episode including AI pair programming as one of the things. Not my thing, I seem to remember.
Yeah.
Aside from it being funny that Claude Code came out the day after we released a bloody episode.
That's just our timing, right?
Yes. Insofar as we interact with time, it screws us. I've entirely forgotten what I was going to say.
I think that vibe coding's been around for a long time. As a career software tester. So hear me out, right? So I've worked on projects where like suddenly it's the most important thing in the world to deliver it as fast as humanly possible. And then suddenly all the error handling around all code just starts to thin away and eventually just disappear. And then things like authentication are forgotten. So,
well, that's it, isn't it? And you start to compromise your crown jewels of data.
Yeah.
Because you only need one serious breach to be very publicly embarrassed.
Yeah.
Because you have to tell people it's the law.
Yeah.
You can't just cover it up and move on.
Yeah. So I think that in its way, vibe coding's been around for a little while.
Well, something like it, yes.
Yeah, because you have to be vigilant whether or not it's another developer has written the code and you're reviewing it, or the AI's written the code.
Well, no, hang on. You can't be dragging that into the definition of vibe coding. The semantic diffusion has gone far enough.
I don't think it can ever go far enough.
Vibe coding is where you write code with an AI without checking it. And the essential features are you don't check it, and AI writes it, and it's you that does it. The subject, the person who's doing the vibe coding does it.
So not just vibes in general then?
No.
I feel like you're keen to ensure that the definition of vibe coding is protected from any further exploration of the subject.
Well, I like the definition of vibe coding, I think, is where that comes from. I like that it kind of makes it okay to just sit and play about and see what happens. And coding, it can be fun. It can be fun. And doing it in that kind of way is an interesting way to explore and see what the AI is capable of.
Yeah.
But it's not the way to write production-ready code that you can release and that people can trust that their data will be safe. It just isn't. And it's important to have that distinction. What's interesting, particularly for me, in the various things you've brought together, is the ThoughtWorks side of it. Despite the fact I now probably will have PTSD about you leaping out on people in the ThoughtWorks radar and disagreeing with them. But it's very stressful. But not the leaping out, obviously, just the disagreement. It's just socially very terrifying. That idea of actually it doesn't require a developer to set out to do vibe coding. It just requires that they relax their villagers. It just requires that it requires that they relax their vigilance for a short while they're doing this, while they're coding with an AI, and the AI just does something that they weren't expecting. And that, I think, is a real risk. And I know it is because it's happened to me.
Yeah.
And I tend to independently review the code at the end now. And sometimes I even get an AI to help with that. So that was the link back. Finally, I can finish my thought. The thing we talked about during the AI pair programming episode was Simon Willison's LLM command, and how you can basically pipe your Git repository's code into the LLM command, omitting node modules and other folders of libraries, because the LLMs are only so big.
Yeah.
But if you put those things into an LLM, you can ask it to do a security review, and it will review for have all my APIs got suitable authentication. Yeah. Because I've done it. I did it before I even really did much with AI coding, just to test. Some of my code was pen tested, which was quite a scary. No one's ever done that to me before. And it was all right, actually. I only got one medium. There were no criticals.
Okay.
And my medium was that my code allowed itself to be displayed in an iframe. Mm-hmm. So I've told it never be displayed in an iframe.
Okay.
And now it's happy and I've solved my bug.
Interesting.
But, before that test, I piped that repository into the AI and said, review the security model of the API calls. And it did. And it said, yes, they all seem to have authentication, apart from the ones that seem deliberately not to.
Yeah.
And it was good. And it gave me a warm feeling that, it was going to be all right, which it was. But I think that kind of taking a second look after you've done whatever it is and getting a person or some, dare I say, even testing, but
who does that?
It's crazy people. But
no one wants to know how anything really works.
Even if it's just an AI going through and looking for pattern breaches in your APIs, that's just a second look, isn't it?
Yeah, which is obviously the antithesis of vibe coding.
Yes.
Because you're not supposed to look or even be interested in looking.
No, you're just doing a little dance with the machine.
Yeah.
It's an activity done for pleasure, not for work.
Exactly.
That's it, isn't it? That's the core difference.
Yeah.
If someone's paying you, don't vibe code.
Don't have any fun.
Have fun, just don't vibe code.
No.
Semantic diffusion on the word fun is taking place.
So that's vibe coding.
Oh.
Well, or at least one discussion about vibe coding. I'm sure there'll be many more.
What a great thing. I enjoyed that thing immensely. Much more than I'm probably going to enjoy my thing.
Well, that sounds like the time for an interlude, doesn't it?
It does. I wonder how long it will continue to be amusing to me that I put the music on when it's time for an interlude.
Forever.
Oh, it's just nice, isn't it?
Start the relaxation. Oh no, don't, because you're failing your capitalist masters.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, turn that off. You got really nervous when I mentioned your capitalist masters.
Oh, they did, yes.
And you're like, I went to pieces and pressed all the wrong buttons.
Ash was looking at me as I stabbed violently at the buttons on the roadcaster, trying to make it stop. Well, actually, what I was doing was turning on and off the stupid deep voice effect.
And the squeaky voice effect, which I know to be your favourite.
It is good.
She's becoming incapacitated with laughter due to the squeaky voice. I kind of wish I could just do it to him, but unfortunately my powers are limited to only doing it to myself. Maybe if I switch the microphone channels without saying, and then I can just sit there and make you all squeaky.
So I've got a couple of interlude things.
I'm glad you have, because I've failed dismally to have any interlude.
I feel like this is my interlude now, given I've brought the things, two things, interlude things.
Things with a small t.
Things with a small t.
Honestly, the semantic diffusion associated with the word thing in this podcast is dramatic.
Is semantic diffusion going to become a theme of the podcast?
Only if I have anything to do with it.
So yes, it will.
My joy at making Ash laugh when he's got a mouthful of water is tempered by the way in which he's pointing at a lot of technology that I own.
Oh, yeah. So interlude things. Are you ready?
It just seems a bit structured.
Well,
It seems like we should be able to sort of flow into the interlude things,
wow.
but we're kind of.
But I've put them
announcing
in a bulleted list, so it is structured.
It is structured.
So
yes.
one of them is a question for you, Ian.
What? It's your favourite colour?
So, say if you'd received some designs
What?
In
For example, Figma designs.
in a popular tool,
In a
which
popular
is the
tool.
style of the time, and say if you were building part of those designs, and then there was a button on them which took you to a thing that didn't exist yet, as in we think it's going to exist in the future. So, would you add the button that takes you to the thing that doesn't exist?
Is that the equivalent to in the physical world? As I'm driving along, a road sign says "to my destination," pointing over a bridge, and then the bridge is only half built, and I fall in the water in my car.
No.
Well, it's the same. It's It's slightly different in it's just different scale of things.
Yeah.
I don't know. A button to nowhere. One of my favourite Simpsons things was the escalator to nowhere.
Oh, yeah, true. So I guess it does have.
It was just a throwaway joke at the end of the episode about the monorail.
Yeah.
Some other things, basically, the writers have thought of.
Yeah. I've just noticed that there's generally like two types of developers. The ones.
There are 10 types of developers.
Yeah.
The ones that understand binary and the ones that don't.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, to me, there's the ones that retrieve a design, build it, but realise that there's a button that doesn't go anywhere yet, so they just don't add it. And then there's the ones who just follow the design and add the button to nowhere.
You see, I would like to add the button to nowhere.
Yeah.
Because I would think it's funny. I wouldn't think it was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
But I would think it was funny, which is obviously much more important.
That's fair enough. That has answered my question, to be fair.
In fact, I would probably go so far as to build something at the other end of the button to give you a more amusing error page when you got there.
Yeah, that's true, actually. I would accept that more than just...
Here's the phone number of the designer. Please ring them and ask what should be here.
Yeah.
I'm at this page and it says I should ring you up to ask what should be on it.
Yeah, so I'd accept that more than just, you press it, it gets into a confused set of redirects and then just goes to the error page. So yeah, I was just wondering, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's... It's almost like there's a problem with the design tool in that it allows you to...
I'm not sure what you mean.
To create buttons to nowhere.
Buttons to nowhere.
We press the button to nowhere. More Australian bands.
And then the other thing, interlude thing.
Wow, we're really motoring through these interlude things.
Yeah. I'm intrigued. So I saw that Sam Altman, rather than saying that...
We're quoting billionaires now.
Yeah, rather than saying that LLMs are going to replace developers, now he's changed tack and said they're going to make them 10x developers. See, and all along he said, we just wanted to make them better, not replace them.
Well, I think there's been a lot of that kind of noise around. I remember at IBM years ago when Watson came along and we were just digesting the idea that someone had made an app that could beat humans at Jeopardy. I say an app, it was like a massive machine room full of servers.
I was going to say, the very glib description there.
Yeah. It wasn't running on anyone's phone, put it that way.
It's actually a 10-story building.
Yes. And that was, IBM was sort of saying a long time, back then, AI will help humans, not replace them.
Yeah.
But I also think that companies are making assumptions that they can replace humans with AIs. I'm
Yeah.
fairly certain that's happening. I don't know about 10xing developers. I find this idea of a 10x developer quite hilarious, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's just like, but even so, yes, it will empower developers,
Yeah.
or at least vigilant developers. All the ones that aren't vigilant will be fired when they expose the company data through a slightly misplaced reliance.
Yeah, but it won't be their fault. It'll be the AI's.
No, it'll be
fault.
their fault. That's the thing.
You're just not with the vibe, Ian.
Yes, I am. And that isn't the vibe. Oh, dear.
Don't tell me
dear.
what the vibe is.
I won't tell you what the... I'm starting to lose semantic coherence.
I like it.
We're talking about your thing again. This second thing about 10xing developers was just a secret. It's like the button to nowhere has come out of your thing and landed us in the interlude, still talking about
Just so I can
vibe coding.
I can jab at you again about vibe coding.
You're not jabbing at me. I feel no jabs. I'm completely
Jab free.
jab free. No, I'm not. I've been vaccinated against all the
All major
traditional diseases. But I guess what I mean is that, yeah, I'm just going to stick with vibe coding means what Andrei Kapathy said it means, and nothing else.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think AI can really help developers.
Yeah. Some of the less charitable commentators on Sam Altman's words are basically...
Surely there were no uncharitable commentators.
Well, yeah, indeed. But they were basically saying that the amount of compute power needed in order to do that actual job might be something that's a bit too much and expensive for the world to bear. So...
Well, it is expensive.
Yeah.
And Anthropic, particularly the Claude APIs, are really quite expensive. So Claude Code, I could quite, if I spent a whole day really focused on using it to do something, plus all the do-agains that it has to do because it gets it wrong, I could easily spend $50, $60, $70, $80. That's a lot cheaper than another human to help me.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, it's a noticeable sums of money.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know, but I just think all this 10x full stack developer, 10 years experience in something invented yesterday. It's just recruitment industry gone mad, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess it's just the kind of the sign of another set of semantically diffuse terms.
Yes. Yes, we all say that, but none of us know what it means.
Yep.
Or we all know what it means, but everyone's version is different.
So that's what I had in
No.
terms of interlude things.
I can't believe... Oh, I've got an interlude thing. I've just thought of it. Because I was driven to reflect on your 4-item whip limit that you have in your life.
Oh, yeah.
Because the other day I was trying to figure out why I was so busy. If you look behind you, sorry, not you, I mean Ash, in the other direction, there's a list of all the things I'm doing at the moment. And it's not 4. When I did it, it was 7. There's lots of things.
But that's the first stage. Well, it is. I'm being genuine.
Yes.
Yeah. It's just showing how much work in progress you actually have.
Have a problem.
Yeah, exactly.
There's going to be a number of steps that I now have to do.
10-step program.
Now I've admitted I have a problem.
Yeah. Then you can begin to adopt.
Stop doing all the things.
Then you can begin to adopt the patented Ash Winter system.
Will you sell me some stationery? Because I need stationery.
Oh, right.
Before
Okay.
I'll
Stationery
be able
is step 7.
Is that to give yourself some time to make some?
Well, yeah, exactly.
Put it on sale for an abnormally large amount of money. Yeah, so it's quite interesting. So I have allowed my work in progress to build up to quite a high level. And dismally, only 2 of the 7 things I'm being paid for.
That does sound like you, Ian, to be fair.
It does a bit, doesn't it? But, you know.
It's the first step.
It's the first step.
To a better life.
To a different life.
Different.
Oh, dear. Yes, so I do often think about that. I think I admire your discipline of doing it, which isn't to say I think you do it perfectly, because presumably there are all manner of very enticing opportunities to fall off the wagon of adding new things to your...
Yeah, things come along and you have to be very, very diligent.
Yes.
In,
You can just be riding along on your nice thing and you look behind you and there's like 7 things on your to-do list.
yeah. Then you have to try and ignore them as best you can.
Hope they go away.
A lot of things do go away.
That is true.
So, but that's not to say you should ignore everything. Things, for the amount of things that actually go away, there's probably like a similar amount of things that don't go away and become other things.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, is telling the difference between the things that will go away and the things that will multiply if you ignore them.
Yeah. There's something about judgment in there as well, which is a harder.
Is that judgment as in showing good judgment, or judgment as in, I find you guilty of having too many things on your whip list. Well, you must feel bad about yourself.
Now you put it like that. Kind of a bit of both.
Yeah, a bit of both. Yeah.
Because, everyone's got too much work in progress, right?
I feel that's a reasonable hypothesis.
Yeah.
There's nothing worse than having not enough work in progress. I don't like that at all.
Just need to find the right amount. So 4 is a nice amount.
Yeah.
Keeps me from being too crazy.
Yes. Very successful strategy, if I may say so.
Yeah, absolutely. Agreed.
Yes. Ash Winter, ladies and gentlemen. Not too crazy.
Not too crazy.
Oh dear. I can't take the interlude stress anymore.
No. Well, maybe we should do another thing.
I need to do another thing.
Yeah.
This thing is a sort of antidote to the last time's thing, which was so weighty and unexpectedly traumatic that I feel the need for something vapid.
Oh, excellent.
And relatively safe. Is anything truly safe?
No.
I thought not. My thing
is
Bluesky.
Back on the social media train.
Well,
when I first saw this in here, I was like, is this just going to be Ian asking me to go on Bluesky? Is that going to be your thing? Because the answer is still no.
I feel it could become part of it, maybe.
Yeah.
I actually think you should go on Mastodon, not Bluesky.
Right,
because I think you'd be more likely to interact with people that you'd find interesting to interact with on there. So Mastodon, you'll generally find that you've got smaller group of people, but they're more interesting. So one thing about Bluesky is that a few episodes ago, I accused it of being owned by billionaires.
Right.
Because I thought Jack Dorsey owned it because he started it. But actually, it is owned by VCs, but not billionaires. So Jack Dorsey is not involved with it anymore.
All right, okay.
And the other thing about it is that it's had a massive uptick recently.
All right, okay.
Because people who were on another social network, the kind of social network where your account name gets truncated because there aren't enough characters for it, have left that social network. And I think one might speculate that it's something to do with the owner and his salutes and political leanings.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have landed on Bluesky. And it's interesting to me because they didn't land on Mastodon, they landed on Bluesky.
Yeah.
And I think the reason is that when you land on Mastodon, you have to choose a server. And I think the friction of that is too much for people.
Well, yes, it doesn't have the simplicity of just signing up to the service.
No. But yeah, so a lot of people have landed on Bluesky. So I think people like Ian Dunt, who's a political writer who swears a lot on Twitter, he's now on there instead. And that's good because before I had left him behind because he was on Twitter.
Yeah.
But now I can read his stuff again. And so there's a lot of interesting people on there now. And the other thing is that it's built on this kind of open protocol called the AT protocol. And if you're going to ask me what AT stands for, don't.
Okay.
There's a lot of opportunity for people to moderate their own feeds and things. It's got a lot of sort of plug-in stuff for that. The CEO is a woman called Jay Graber. Yeah. And she says the Bluesky team, the Bluesky T, that sounds nice, doesn't it? The team does moderate content, but it offers via the open protocol, users can have the ability to create their own moderation systems. Okay. If they want to. And You can have modules that screen for particular things or politics or whatever, and use it to create your own kind of filtered view. So I think there's potentially a lot more of that people will do. That's the kind of thing that I think people will take advantage of.
Yeah, you could do that on Twitter to some extent as well, couldn't you?
I mean, people use Twitter lists and things, didn't they?
Yeah.
Another interesting Bluesky thing is that you can make a thing called a welcome pack or something like that.
All right, okay.
Where you can just recommend a group of users to follow that new users can just click and follow them all. So if you just found someone, if you were to sign up to Bluesky and found a tester who had done that, made a list of that world, you would be very easily able to then jump back into those conversations that you're currently missing out on. It must feel terrible to be missing out on conversations.
You know what? It doesn't.
It doesn't. Yeah, you're right.
I'm not against these tools. I think I've just left it behind a little bit. I'm just not. I find myself less interested in social media than I ever have been.
Yeah.
It's not I'm not fundamentally against the idea.
Well, I enjoy putting these options before you, but I'm not tremendously optimistic that you'll ever take them up. But I feel as though social media is missing out on you rather than necessarily the other way around.
Well, yeah, maybe, but I don't know. I think maybe I was oversaturated previously, and then now
you're just in detox rehab.
Yeah,
you're in social media.
I think
rehab.
so. I think so. So Jack Dorsey.
Yes.
In the notes, it says he left and deleted his account.
I'm taking my ball. I'm going home.
Yeah. I'm interested in the petulance of this. So because then he says he complained about Bluesky's moderation approach.
You mean that it had one?
Yeah, and basically then said this is literally repeating all the mistakes Twitter made as a company.
Free speech, man.
Yeah. That's really, it's a common thing with the billionaire class, isn't it? This kind of odd views on free speech and not moderating things and just letting, people be as toxic as possible. and then any form of moderation seems to be like an imposition.
Well, the thing is that free speech is a good thing.
Yeah.
But you sort of think, okay, so the first thing that people do when they're trying to form a dictatorship is to start shutting down free speech. So I think free speech is a vital freedom. But then you get all these questions about where the lines are to be drawn. And when someone's freedom to do something is in conflict with someone else's freedom to be have done to them.
So they seem to, like here, Jack Dorsey, it seems to be a very sort of childish view of what free speech is.
Well, I think that there's this whole idea of being a free speech absolutist.
Yeah.
And it's basically saying it's never the right thing to do.
Yeah.
To limit free speech. And actually, the cure for bad speech is more speech. If people are wrong, then you should argue with them.
Just endlessly.
Not ban them.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's a completely meritless point of view. The thing is, you can't do it. It's like an ideal.
Yeah, because it doesn't work in practice.
In practice, you have to draw a line. Then you get into the argument of where should the line be.
Yeah.
All the way to one side of, I think free speech is very important unless it's disagreeing with my opinions.
Yeah, and I feel like that's what this generally is.
Yes. And I think that's Elon's Twitter version of free speech now.
Yeah. It's like freedom for me, but not for
freedom,
you.
Yeah. Through to the other side where you just say you can say anything. And then people are using their speech to hurt other people or to whip up mobs or that kind of thing.
To target them, to dox them, to whatever it is.
It is very difficult to find where to draw that line.
Yeah.
Because you can move the line around and different people are saying, no, you're wrong, no, you're wrong.
Yeah.
I don't think ethics professors are necessarily a million miles ahead of anybody else in this people who study ethics. I'm sure they have a view that's of more high quality than mine.
Yeah.
But I just kind of run out of steam on free speech as it's complicated, but I feel like we should probably err in the direction of freedom.
Yeah.
It can't be all the way.
Yeah, it's complicated, but you have to try to make sure people don't get hurt.
Yes. But what does
if you
hurt mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Are we talking about snowflakes and their poor feelings?
Yeah.
I have some sympathy with snowflakes and their poor feelings.
Well, we've all got feelings.
Yes.
So,
but are we being hurt if our feelings are hurt? And should we stop people from saying anything that hurts anyone's feelings? You can't really do that because anyone can say their feelings are hurt just to stop anyone else from saying anything. So
again, I'm not saying it's easy.
It's complicated.
I'm saying, but you can't just abdicate. If you're going to set up a platform such as this, you cannot just abdicate all responsibility and just engage in absolutism.
Well, not anymore because you've left and deleted your account in the case of Jack.
Exactly. But that is what a child does when faced with a complicated problem. So I think Bluesky in the long term might benefit from not having Mr. Dorsey around.
Well, they are doing some interesting things about the moderation problem. It's an interesting area.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm kind of behind it at the moment, even though it's VC backed, which,
well, unfortunately, in the world,
suggests enshittification will arrive eventually.
Well, eventually you'll be paying your subscription, but
yeah, that's fine. It won't be even noticed amongst all the other subscriptions that I'm paying.
In the forest of subscriptions.
Yes,
if another one falls.
Yes.
Does anyone hear it?
Does anyone hear it? Yeah. But at the moment, they seem to be doing some interesting things.
Yeah.
And actually, compared with being on Twitter now, it's quite a pleasant experience.
Yeah. So what about the modular moderation? That's kind of interesting as well, isn't it? So you could build your own personalized moderation.
Well, they say it's... I did try and look into it a bit. I couldn't figure out how to do it.
Oh, right, okay.
It's one of those things where I think if I had read the documents for another hour, I probably would have got a handle on it. But, I had these 7 things on my to-do list, so I didn't do it.
Yeah.
But it sounds like it's sort of pluggable, modular kind of thing where you can write little bits of code that can look at your Bluesky feed and report back to Bluesky, no, don't show him that.
Right, okay.
And Jay Graber says, you can think of these moderation pieces as Lego blocks. So I'm already like her because she didn't say Legos. Because Americans say Legos and you just can't say that.
Yeah.
But you can say Lego blocks.
Lego blocks, yeah.
And a user can assemble them, i.e. modules that screen for profanity or graphic language. You mean people talking about Figma? Or the word politics.
I don't screen that out.
To create their own
Give me all of it.
Bespoke experience. Maybe your bespoke experience can be you only get
Figma.
You can just follow the Figma hashtag. And then
just keep adding buttons to nowhere.
And then argue with people.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's you could
that could be my my reason for being on Bluesky. As soon as someone mentions Figma.
Well, I'm just thinking...
I think I would be getting filtered out by the moderation tools.
Yes, you probably would.
Yeah.
I feel as though if you went on Bluesky, then we'd be on episode 60 or something. I'd say, you haven't mentioned Figma for ages. And you'd be like, yes, I have. Just not on here.
Maybe it does need another outlet.
Yes. And another thing. Hashtag and another thing. So, yes, as I said, that's a bit more of a vapid, lightweight thing. But I do think it's interesting. And I feel that the open protocol gives it some hope. And I think if you wanted to run your own, you probably could.
Yeah. Because I remember when I had a Twitter...
You could vibe code a server.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, totally, yeah. So when I had a Twitter account, I often filtered out words like Trump and other words like that. Just because, you get sick of seeing it. I realise that that's a privileged position to be in. But this doesn't enhance my life, so I want to remove it. But again, that wasn't an open protocol, was it? That was what Twitter had decided you
would be allowed to do.
Yeah, yes. Exactly. So you were still exposed to... And then often, you would still get it in your feed, but just in a kind of a roundabout way. You know what I mean? Because there'd obviously be gaps in the implementation where articles that are about the particular person...
Without actually mentioning it.
Yeah, exactly. So there was no way to do that like completely. So maybe having like a more open version would be a bit more personalized to your own needs.
Well, that's what you need.
Yeah. And in terms of enshittification, it's hard to see how a service like Bluesky won't eventually end up in that situation.
I like to be optimistic about these things.
I don't know. It's difficult though, isn't it?
I like to be optimistic. Didn't say I was.
Yeah.
Last time we talked about testing and we tried to get ChatGPT to find out if it knew the table of contents of your book. And I was trying to find out, because remember, it made up a whole book.
I was like, well, I've already done that. So,
and there was a particular kind of testing that I'm trying to find the name of, but I can't remember it, that you said came from James Back. And I was going to mention it and say, is that one of the words you would filter out? But basically, I just can't find it.
I'm trying desperately not to say vibe testing.
Well, I have a feeling that is not something that you're going to manage to sustain.
It's already being talked about in online.
You heard it here first. See, that would be much more effective if people had realised I was kind of whispering into my microphone secretively. But it just sounded like I was talking in a funny voice.
Yeah. Well, you're doing both.
I always do both.
Yeah. And then, is it different enough from Twitter to have a chance of being okay?
Well,
that's an interesting question too.
I think it needs to be different from Twitter now, not different from Twitter.
Yeah. It's like
5 or 10 years ago.
There's a time distortion field there, isn't there?
We're constantly dodging them around here.
Yeah, because there was a time there when Twitter was a really nice place to be.
It was, yeah.
And quite a positive influence.
And that's kind of why I'm doing this kind of mock campaign to persuade you, because I feel like you might like it.
Yeah.
But because some of the, particularly Mastodon, I know I keep going on about it, but it has that vibe where most of the people on it are decent people who you would actually want to talk to. And it is reminiscent of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, obviously Twitter today is just this sort of toxic soup.
Another toxic
soup. You wouldn't want to swim around in it.
No.
But Bluesky is quite nice. I like it. And I'll keep liking it as long as it keeps not being enshittified, I suppose.
Yeah. And hopefully that can go on for a little while.
Yes. And there's always Mastodon, which is not owned by anybody and therefore is least enshittifiable. I mean, there's definitely things that can go wrong with it.
Yeah.
But it's one of the things that goes wrong isn't going to be VCs monetizing it.
Where there's a will, there's a way.
There's no one called Will involved in it, to my knowledge. Sorry, Will, whoever you are. I didn't mean to imply you weren't involved with it when you are, if you are. Wow. So that was my lightweight thing.
What free speech was your lightweight thing?
Yeah, that's my best lightweight thing, that is. That's the thing I come up with when I want to carry a feather around for a bit.
Free speech is a lightweight
thing. That was not my thing. My thing was Bluesky.
Bluesky.
We may or may not have
mentioned a container free speech. For the idea of free speech.
Yes.
Yeah. Cool.
Well, we're doing quite well compared to normal because it's only been an hour and 25 minutes.
Ooh, a treat.
We might be coming in under 90 minutes, which will be...
gradually bringing it back.
Yeah, that whole 100 and whatever it was minutes last time, that was very painful.
So how do you get in touch, Ian?
I'll use Signal.
With?
You.
How does the listeners get in touch?
Oh.
Yeah, them ones.
Why didn't you say that?
Yeah, I should have said that.
Honestly, these imprecise questions, you're just asking vibe questions.
Vibe questions. But that means that I don't care about the
questions.
Answer.
Fuzz questions. Yeah. Well, you can reply on Bluesky to this episode, and our Bluesky account, which actually is not most of the accounts are in a domain of bsky.app.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to, you can confirm ownership of a domain that you own, and then your Bluesky account can be your domain.
Oh.
So we are whatalotofthings.com on Bluesky. And if you reply to posts by whatalotofthings.com, they appear on the episode page.
Nice.
And if you do that, then Ash will have no choice but to sign up to Bluesky so that he can talk to you about them. So say something infuriating to Ash.
About Figma and how much you love it.
Yeah, how Figma is
And how
perfect.
it's revolutionised how you work.
Has never been misused by anybody.
And how you add buttons to nowhere.
How buttons to nowhere are a feature, not a bug. Then Ash will finally get on Bluesky to come and argue with you.
Maybe the page should have like five buttons, 4 buttons that don't go anywhere, and only one submits the form.
This sounds like a 1970s quiz show.
Yeah.
Behind door number 1, it's a duck. Yeah. Behind door number 2, the Ferrari. But you've missed out on that because you've got the duck.
I like duck.
It took forever for us to shuffle them around behind before we opened the doors. There. But yes, I feel that we just need a juicy conversation underneath our episode on Bluesky to trigger a whole new Ash social media revolution.
It could happen.
It could happen. Not
The
completely impossible.
the chance is not great.
Not great. If you would feel cheated by the lack of response from Ash on Bluesky, then probably don't do it.
We also have a LinkedIn group,
We have a LinkedIn group.
which I am actually on.
We're both on it.
Yeah. So
And,
I can be contacted there.
Ash posted a hot take on the most recent episode,
Yeah,
which was
cool.
fantastic.
Hmm.
We love to read the Ash Winter hot take on the
I'm
episode's
good at hot
content.
takes.
It's very good. It's a fine hot take. Obviously, a nice and refreshing counterpoint to the show notes.
I enjoy contradicting the show notes as
Yes.
well. I do that on purpose.
Yes. I thought so.
Yeah. And also we have an email address.
And that is Ian and Ash at whatalotofthings.com.
That's the one.
So, if none of those 3 ways of contacting us work, then we have failed you and we're sorry. But they do work.
They do.
So
Yeah.
use them. Ash is ceremonially pressing a button on his laptop, which I think is supposed to symbolically induce me to press the button on my
I
recorder.
thought I'd just try and do it.
Oh no, it's gone over an hour and 30.
That's why I wanted you to do it.